Over the past decades, the Brisbane River has undergone significant change. In the days before the European settlement, it was a lush and abundant environment, providing many resources for the natural species of Queensland. Unfortunately, the vegetation on the riverbeds has now been removed and the river has been desnagged, polluted and manipulated for the building of dams and impoundments. What we see today is a result of extreme human activity, such as stream channelization, agricultural activity, chemical spillage and urbanisation. These anthropomorphic permutations of the natural landforms cause extensive habitat degradation, which caused many native species to be driven out of their natural habitat. One native species affected severely by this was the Brisbane river cod, a subspecies of the eastern freshwater cod which was driven to extinction between the 1930s and the 1950s. In an attempt to restore the river's natural ecology, the endangered Mary River cod, another species of eastern freshwater cod and the closest relative to the Brisbane river cod, was introduced into the Brisbane River somewhere around the early 1980s, where it remains today on the brink of extinction. We need to manipulate the land for our own benefits, with little regard for the consequences. We are yet again about to drive another eastern freshwater cod species to extinction, the Mary River cod. So what is responsible for the decline in the Mary River cod population?
Silting. Deep holes are silting up.
Yeah.
Logs have been pulled out of the river that they hide behind. Now people clean the river out because they want a better flow. Doesn't work.
Removal of riparian vegetation and in-stream timber negatively impact upon the Mary River cod, as they are an antisocial fish, which prefer to spend most of their time by themselves under cover. The fish cannot reside in areas where their preferred cover is taken away.
Well, they're an ambush fish, so they like anything that gives them cover.
In-stream timber and riparian vegetation, as we can see here, are vital for the fish as they provide cover. Without this cover, the fish cannot ambush and capture their prey, making it a very vexing task to feed. Removing riparian vegetation, or desnagging the river, also causes heavy erosion which results in high turbidity. Not only does this affect the fish's feeding patterns, but also their reproductive biology.
One of the main impacts is that you take away the riparian vegetation, which happened in the early 1900s and before in a lot of areas. That gets a lot of sediment mobile into the rivers and starts to fill up the deep holes, deep pools. And the deep pools seem to be one of the core habitats that cod use for breeding and just for living, feeding, etc. So the whole removal of riparian vegetation, that has other effects in removing food source as far as insects and that sort of thing.
Timber is also very critical in the fish's reproductive biology. Despite the fact that this phenomenon has never been observed in the wild, it is a critical ingredient in the breeding of Mary River cod in the hatcheries.
Well, in the hatcheries you would have seen they lay their eggs in hollow pipes, they provide hollow pipes. That's because, as the best we understand, they use hollow logs in the wild, and the hollow logs have got to come from somewhere, and that is from the riparian areas. As more logs were taken out, more trees were removed, the number of logs going into the river was smaller. The number of big mature trees that actually formed the big hollows that they'd be using that fall into the river wouldn't be nearly as common.
The Mary River cod community in the Brisbane River is extremely fragile due to several aspects of their behavioural and reproductive biology. The fish are slow growing and become fertile late in their lifetime. They can grow up to around 20 kilograms but are more commonly seen under 5 kilograms, which is the expected fertility weight. This means that the fish should be given all the time they can to mature and become fertile with minimal disturbance. The fish's fecundity is also very fragile.
We work on the basis of if you've got a wild spawning, you might have 20,000 eggs. Of that 20,000, maybe 2 will survive.
This has sonorous implications for the ecological stability of the fish, meaning that once the fish's populations decline into the endangered zone, as they are now, then the repopulation of the species will be a laborious process. The decline in the Mary River cod populations can arguably be attributed to permutations of the natural landscape and habitat degradation. Our indifference to our actions and their effects on the local ecology have yet again pushed another endemic species to the brink of extinction. It is entirely our responsibility now to mend what we have broken. So what courses of action can we take to prevent this beautiful species from going into extinction? To avoid this catastrophe.
Don't remove snags. Get vegetation back on the river bank.
The most important thing is to protect their habitat and remove as much as possible those impacts that cause their decline.
If we don't take action quickly, then there will be very little hope for the restoration of the Mary River cod populations. Especially with the fragile behavioural and reproductive aspects of the fish, if we do not act fast, then the future for these fish is bleak. What would you predict is going to be their status for the future?
Well, I'd say you look at 50 years before you get to a stage where you can say, okay, they've got a chance to survive.
At present, the fish are not showing any major signs of a recovery. The current habitat degradation is an issue of great concern. Though the end of the Mary River cod is looming over the horizon, it is still possible, with the combined help of the community, to prevent this beautiful native species from going into extinction. Resulting from habitat degradation and permutations of the natural landscape. Aaron, the fish cannot feed or feed someone as well. Without this cover, the fish cannot. Derek, why are you laughing? Feeder, riparian vegetation and in-stream. Quick pause it. Without this cover, the fish cannot ambush and capture. The fish cannot reproduce and cannot feed. I can't do it. River cod populations, especially with the flat-tailed failure and the flat-tailed fish. If we do not act fast, the future will be bleak. No! Ah! I lost it. What am I saying? Major signs of a recovery. The current habitat degradation is an issue of great concern. Come on!